I'll sing a song of storm-tossed oceans, standing upon my native shore, and dream of climbing cloud-torn mountains while gazing up from the forest floor. Hello. Welcome, I'm Bill. I'm a troubadour. Been a troubadour all my life. Mostly what I do is mess around with old songs and stories, trying to connect with ancestral spirits. So here's to the dreams that have long gone by, those that will never be. I call to the spirits who laugh in the night, in hopes that they'll join with me. So with the help of a few songs, I'm going to reach out and connect you to a real, honest to goodness American Revolutionary War hero. But for a lot of folks who remember him, and there really aren't that many, he's a troubling spirit, a troubling ghost. Whenever I would bring his name up to an old friend and former U.S. Senator, he would thunder, "Tom Paine is a pain in the ass." God keep America free from tyrannic sway till time shall cease. Hushed be the din of arms and all proud wars alarm. Follow in all her charms, heaven born peace.
The rebellion in the colonies made me a soldier, a journalist, and an author. My motive and object in all my political works have been to rescue man from tyranny and the false principles of government, and enable him to be free and establish a government for himself.
Folks, this is Thomas Paine, our largely forgotten, sometimes reviled, and often misunderstood true hero of the American Revolution. You see, he's the fella that put together that little pamphlet called Common Sense, which basically blew a smoldering ember of, what some might call a self-serving provincial tax rebellion into a worldwide revolutionary inferno for the rights of man, social, political, economic justice. And it stood to reason. You couldn't sponsor this worldwide revolution from a colony. No, you had to have your own nation founded upon these universal principles of the age of reason. It was only common sense. And you know, just from the royalties of that little pamphlet, Tom Paine could have been one of the wealthiest men in the Americas. But he gave it all away to the Continental Army, mostly for socks.
I do believe it improper to enrich oneself while pursuing the rights of man.
A true walking, talking revolution. Tom Paine. It was his radical and unyielding ways that almost got him hanged in England guillotined in France, he just couldn't shut up. So let's start with a great song by Graham Moore, a Dorset man, an English troubadour, who spent a lot of time chronicling his nation's search for social, economic, and political justice. And he knows an awful lot about Tom Paine. As I dreamed out one evening by a river of discontent, well, I bumped right into old Tom Paine, and running down the road he went. Oh, he said, I can't stop right now, child. King George is after me. He'll have a rope around my throat. He'll hang me from the Liberty Tree. I will dance to Tom Paine's bones. Dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance in the oldest boots I own to the rhythm of Tom Paine's bones.
One of the strongest natural proofs of the folly of hereditary right in kings is that nature disapproves of it. Otherwise, she would not so frequently turn it into ridicule by giving mankind an ass for a lion.
Oh, I dance to Tom Paine's bones. Dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance in the oldest boots I own to the rhythm of Tom Paine's bones.
I happened to come to America a few months before the breaking out of hostilities. I had no thoughts of independence or of arms. The world could not have persuaded me that I should either be a soldier or an author. But when the country into which I had just set foot was set on fire about my ears, it was time to stir. It was time for every man to stir.
Well, I only talked about freedom, justice for everyone. But since the very first word I spoke, I've been looking down the barrel of a gun. They say I preached revolution. Let me say in my defense that all I did wherever I went was talk a lot of common sense.
Men who look upon themselves born to reign and others to obey soon grow insolent. Selected from the rest of mankind, their minds are early poisoned by their own self-importance. And the world they act in differs so materially from the world at large that they have little opportunity of knowing its true interest. And when they succeed to government, they are frequently the most ignorant and unfit throughout the dominions.
But I would dance to Tom Paine's bones. I would dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance in the oldest boots I own to the rhythm of Tom Paine's bones.
And when we're planning for posterity, we ought to remember that virtue is not hereditary.
Now old Tom Paine, he ran so fast, he left me standing still. Oh, there I was, a piece of paper in my hand, standing at the top of the hill. It said, this is the age of reason. These are the rights of man. You kick off religion and monarchy. It's written in Tom Paine's plan. I will dance to Tom Paine's bones. Dance to Tom Paine's bones. I will dance in the oldest boots I own to the rhythm of Tom Paine's bones.
A long habit of not thinking a thing wrong gives it the superficial appearance of being right.
I will dance to Tom Paine's bones. I will dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance in the oldest boots I own to the rhythm of Tom Paine's bones. So after our revolution here, Paine goes back to England to champion the rights of man during the early days of the Industrial Revolution. And when he's in England, he gets into a lot of trouble because he suggests that divine right of kings and aristocracy is not necessarily divine. In fact, maybe hogwash. So the fancy folk tried to hang him for libel. Yeah, libel.
If to expose the fraud and imposition of monarchy, and to propose plans for the education of helpless infancy, the comfortable support of the aged and distressed, to endeavor to conciliate nations to one another, to extirpate the horrid practice of war, to promote universal peace, civilization, and commerce, and break the chains of political superstition, and raise degraded man to his proper rank. If these things be libelous, then let me be called a libeler, and let libeler be engraved on my tomb.
Yes, I will dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance in the oldest boots I own to the rhythm of Tom Paine's bones. So it was said in your time that without the pen of Paine, the sword of Washington would have been wielded in vain. And that was said by one of your fellow compatriots. I think it was Joe Barlow. It's attributed actually to John Adams, but it was Joe Barlow. John Adams was a man who was a little bit uncomfortable with the works of your pen. Your pen did a lot of creating, including a couple songs. So you should recognize this one. You wrote it. It was shaping up to be a terrible winter. 1776. The Continental armies cornered, supplies run out, then starving, freezing, dying, deserting. In this time of crisis, the general, Washington, comes to Paine, hoping that he can come up with some kind of words, some kind of phrases to inspire the men to just keep going. So once again, Paine puts his pen to paper, this time using a drumhead for a desk, and lit by campfire light. He creates those familiar inspirational phrases that help keep this revolution of ours going. And once again, you see, it worked.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and sunshine patriot in times of crisis will shirk from his duty. But he that stands it now deserves the love and thanks of every man and woman.
In a chariot of fire from the regions of day, the goddess of liberty came. 10,000 celestials directed the way, thither conducted the dame. This fair budding branch from the regions above, where millions with millions agree. She brought in her hand as a pledge of her love a plant she called Liberty Tree.
Tyranny like hell is not easily conquered.
But hear, O ye swains, 'tis a tale most profane, how all the tyrannical powers, King Commons and Lords, are uniting amain to cut down this guardian of ours. From the east to the west blow the trumpet to arms. Through the land let the sound of it flee. Let the far and the near all unite with a cheer in defense of our liberty tree.
If there must be trouble, let it be in my day, that my child may have peace.
In defense of the liberty tree. then after our military successes here, Paine slips away from our shores and goes back to England and Europe to further seed the revolution. But somehow in the process, folks back in this country are getting alienated, including patriotic conservatives who are just not too keen on the idea of everybody voting. And you, Mr. Paine, were becoming dangerous.
The right of voting is inherent in the word liberty. It constitutes the equality of personal rights. To take away this right is to reduce a man to slavery.
Slavery. Now there was a major rub. More than half of the signers of the Declaration of Independence and more than half of the fellows that put together our Constitution were slave owners or deeply involved in the business of chattel slavery.
Do decent Americans complain so loudly of attempts to enslave them, while they hold so many hundreds of thousands in slavery, and annually enslave many hundreds of thousands more, without any pretense of authority or claim upon them? Yes, slavery.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
And while other evils are confessed and bewailed, why not this especially and publicly?
It was he and his mentor Ben Franklin that were the first to establish an abolition society in the Americas. Now, you were pretty contrary to the idea of a whole national economic system being based on chattel slavery. In fact, it's one of the first things you wrote about when you came to these shores.
That some desperate wretches should be willing to steal and enslave men by violence and murder for gain is rather lamentable rather than strange. But that many civilized, nay, Christianized people should approve and be concerned in this savage practice is surprising.
Christianized people. That was another rub. Religion. Paine, you see, was somewhat edgy when it came to Christian catechisms. Maybe that's why Teddy Roosevelt called you
a filthy little atheist. The world is my church, and to do good is my religion. I believe in one God, and no more. And I hope for happiness beyond this life. I believe in the equality of man. I believe in the religious duties consist in doing justice and loving mercy, and endeavoring to make our fellow creatures happy. All national institutions of churches appear to me to be human inventions set up to terrify and enslave mankind and monopolize power and profit.
with your mind filled with the likes of Locke and Rousseau and Adam and Kant, Voltaire, the age of enlightenment, you really believed that we as humankind could do better. And you were so persuasive in your arguments and your use of reason that you, well, they didn't like to admit it, but some of your greatest detractors, let's see, William Pitt, Edmund Burke, if they were approached privately, would admit that they had to agree with you. But not so much John Adams. Oh, no, no, no. He did not share your faith in common man. In fact, he later said of you, and I need to read this. Quote, "For such a mongrel between pig and puppy, begotten by a wild boar on a bitch wolf," John Adams, "never before in any age of the world was suffered by the plotoonery of mankind to run through such a career of mischief." You were just too damn democratical. That was his word. He really wasn't very nice about it. In fact, later on, he referred to common sense as a
poor, ignorant, malicious, short-sighted, crapulous mass.
crapulous mass.
Crapulous mass.
So what else do you say that would fry Adam's toes?
When the rich plunder the poor of his rights, it becomes an example of the poor to plunder the rich of his property. For the rights of the one are as property to him as wealth is property to the other. It will always be found that when the rich protect the rights of the poor will protect the property of the rich.
Here's a song I think that you're going to like. This fella has been referred to as a 20th century Tom Paine with a guitar. I'm talking about the American troubadour Phil Oakes. And he puts together this song while our Congress is declaring him un-American. Come on and take a walk with me through this green and growing land. Walk through the meadows and the mountains and the sand. Walk through the valleys, the rivers and the plains. Walk through the sun, walk through the rain. Here is a land full of power and glory, beauty that words cannot recall. Oh, her power shall rest in the strength of her freedom. Her glory shall rest on us all. From Colorado, Kansas, and the Carolinas to Virginia and Alaska, the old and the new, Texas and Ohio, the California shore. Tell me who could ask for more? For here is a land full of power and glory, beauty that words cannot recall. Oh, her power shall rest in the strength of her freedom. Her glory shall rest on us all. Yet she's only as rich as the poorest of the poor, only as free as a padlocked prison door, only as strong as our love for this land, only as tall as we stand. Here is a land full of power and glory, beauty that words cannot recall. For her power shall rest in the strength of her freedom. Her glory shall rest on us all, on us all.
When my poor are happy, my jails are empty of prisoners, my streets of beggars, the aged are not in want, the taxes are not oppressive, the rational world is my friend, because I am a friend of happiness. When these things can be said, then may our country boast of its Constitution and its government.
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking, I saw a sign there, and the sign it said, no trespassing. But on the other side, it didn't say nothing. That's the land that's made for you and me.
Personal property is the effect of society. It is impossible for an individual to acquire personal property without the aid of society, as it is for him to make land originally. Separate an individual from society. Give him an island. Give him a continent. And he cannot acquire personal property. He cannot be rich. Personal property beyond what his own hands can produce is derived by living in society. And he owes every principle of justice, of gratitude, of civilization, a part of the accumulation, back again to society from whence the whole came.
As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway, and far below me that golden valley. This land is made for you and me.
I am a friend to riches, because they are capable of good. I care not how affluent some may be, as long as none be made miserable in the consequence of it.
By the shadow of the steeple, I seen my people. By the relief office, I seen my people, and some were hungry, and some were wondering, is this the land that's made for you and me? This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land is made for you and me.
The present state of civilization is as odious as it is unjust. It is operated to make one part of society more affluent and the other more wretched. It's absolutely the opposite of what it should be. And it is necessary that a revolution be made in it.
Nobody living can ever stop me as I go walking this freedom highway. Nobody living can ever make me turn back, 'cause this land is made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, this land is made for you and me. Okay, so now here's another little beauty. Early 1950s, well maybe, early mid-1950s, Ed McCurdy, one of our original peaceniks. Last night I had the strangest dream I never dreamed before. I dreamed that all the world agreed to put an end to war. And I dreamed I saw a mighty room, and the room was filled with men, and the paper they were signing said they'd never fight again.
And war, ye gentle graces, if any such there be who preside over human actions, how ye must weep at the viciousness of man. That there are men in all countries who get their living by war and keeping up the quarrels of nations is as shocking as it is true. He that is the author of wars lets loose the whole contagion of hell and opens a vein that bleeds a nation to death.
And when the paper was all signed and 1,000,000 copies made, they all joined hands and bowed their heads, and grateful prayers were prayed.
Instead of becoming an example of good and moral government and civil manners, sets up the character of ruffian, that of word and blow first, and thereby giving the example of pulling down the little civilization that is gained upon barbarism. Her independence, instead of being an honor and a blessing, would become a curse upon the world and upon herself.
Last night I had the strangest dream I never dreamed before. I dreamed that all the world agreed to put an end to war. So in another earlier time, a little more than a century ago, when it looked like the astonishing greed of a few oligarchs were jeopardizing the very soul of this grand experiment of ours, a poem was written by someone sitting high on the mountain peaks of the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains, looking east out across the high plains toward the Atlantic shore, 2,000 miles in the distance. Inspired by our incredible bounty, our noble purpose, and aware of our human frailty, this poem quickly picked up a tune and became a song. A gentle protest song, a cautionary love song. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty, above the fruited plain, America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood. From sea to shining sea.
Should fair America fall, ah, the painful thought, the noblest work of human wisdom, the grandest scene of human glory, the fair cause of freedom shall fall.
Oh, beautiful for pilgrims' feet, whose stern impassioned strides a thoroughfare for freedom beat across the wilderness, America, God mend thine every flaw, confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law.
We see with other eyes, we hear with other ears, and think other thoughts.
Oh, beautiful for heroes prove in liberating strife. Oh, more than self their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every gain divine.
The true greatness of a nation is founded on the principles of humanity.
Oh, beautiful for patriots' dream that sees beyond the years. Thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood. From sea to shining sea.
The sun never shines on a cause of greater worth.
And crown thy good with brotherhood. From sea to shining sea. So after many years of, I guess what a lot of people called stirring up trouble, Paine finally came back home. He considered these shores home, but he was not well received. He was largely ignored, sometimes reviled, sometimes even worse, ridiculed. He lived out his final years pretty much in poverty. When he finally died, one of his New York obits read, "Tom Paine is dead. He had lived long, done some good, and much harm." Tom Paine. Yet 10 years later, back in England, an obscenely wealthy early English industrialist by the name of William Cobbett had made himself an enemy of all things Tom Paine. Oh, he hated the very essence of him. Then suddenly he has this epiphany, this catharsis, and he becomes the most enthusiastic advocate or disciple of all things Paine. And when he hears about this ignominious death and burial of Paine back here in this country, he comes across the ocean and in the middle of the night digs up what's left of Tom Paine and carries his mortal remains back to England. His intention is to inter them in a great mausoleum that was to serve as a beacon for the coming revolution for the rights of man and the age of reason. But then William Cobbett suddenly got sick, very sick. He lost his mind, he lost his fortune, and he lost the bones. Yes, Tom Paine's bones. We don't know where he lies. Now Tom Paine, oh there he lies. Nobody laughs and nobody cries. And where he's gone and how he fares, oh, nobody knows and nobody cares. But you know, some do. I will dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance in the oldest boots I own to the rhythm of Tom Paine's bones.
We have it in our power to begin the world all over again.
I will dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance to Tom Paine's bones. Oh, I'll dance in the oldest boots I own to the rhythm of Tom Paine's bones. Tom Paine. Oh, nobody knows and nobody cares. But you know, some do. I will dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance in the oldest boots I own to the rhythm of Tom Paine's bones. I will dance to Tom Paine's bones. I'll dance to Tom Paine's bones. Oh, I'll dance in the oldest boots I own to the rhythm of Tom Paine's bones. Tom Paine.